this show going. Mark Haen.
I was in a hotel last night before I got here, and on the hotel there was a Bible, and I thought, well, I'll just crack it open. So I opened it up and it said, if you have a drinking problem, call this number. So I called it. It was a liquor store. My grandfather was an odd character, folks. I'm originally from Rendell County, and I said to him, and we're going to Candy, Ohio, the lake, Big Candy, and I said, Grandpa, what's the fastest way to the lake? And he said, are you driving or are you walking? I said, well, I'm driving. He said, that's the fastest. He had an interesting business, folks. He was both a veterinarian and a taxidermist. So on the outside of his building, it said, no matter what happens, you will leave home with your pet. My grandfather didn't like my grandmother's cooking. He got so bad that all the houseflies got together and decided to get the screen door fixed. One day, Grandma and Grandpa were walking in the park, and a pigeon came over and loaded right on Grandma's forehead. And she said, do you have some toilet paper? And he says, what for? The pigeon's got to be a block away by now. I was in Kohl's the other day, right? Kohl's, the department store in Wilmer. A blind guy comes in with his seeing eye dog, and he goes to the middle of the room, and he grabs the dog by the tail, and he starts swinging the dog around. And a customer service person came up and said, may we help you? And he said, no, we're just browsing. Gee, I can play guitar too. Well, since my memory left me, there was a burglar in a house, and he's taking things off the shelf, and he's filling his pillowcase with stuff, and he hears this sound in the corner, and he says, Jesus is watching you. And then he goes, he kept working. He thought maybe I was just hearing that. Then all of a sudden, one more time, he heard, Jesus is watching you. So he gets his flashlight out, and he flashes it on the drapery, and right next to the drapes, there's a parrot cage. And there's a parrot in there, and he says, was that you? And the parrot says, it was. And he says, what's your name? And he says, my name is Moses. And he says, Moses? What kind of people would name a bird Moses? He said, the same people that named the Rottweiler Jesus. There's a teacher in school, and she's teaching about large animals, and she said the whale is the largest mammal. Even though it's a very large mammal, it cannot swallow a human being. And Johnny is back there waving his hand, teacher, teacher. And she says, yes, Johnny. And Johnny says, what about Jonah? Jonah was swallowed by a whale. And the teacher says, well, I'm just telling you that a whale is a large animal, but it cannot swallow a human being because it has a small throat. And then Johnny's back there. Yes, Johnny. And Johnny says, when I get to heaven, I'm going to ask Jonah if he was swallowed by a whale. And the teacher says, and what if Jonah went to hell? Then he says, well, then you ask him. I'm a fellow with a heart of gold, the ways of a gentleman, I've been told, the kind of a guy that wouldn't even hurt a flea. But if me and this certain character met, I mean the guy that invented the cigarette, I'd murder that son of a gun in the first degree. It's not because I don't smoke myself, and I reckon that they don't hinder your health. I've smoked them all my life, and I ain't dead yet. But these old parties are all the same. At a petting party or a poker game, everything's got to stop while they smoke a cigarette. Smoke, smoke, smoke. That cigarette. Puff, puff, puff until you smoke yourself to death. Tell St. Peter at the Golden Gates that you hate to make him wait, but you just got to have another cigarette. At a game of chance the other night, old fame and fortune was doing me right. The kings and the queens, they kept on coming around. I was hitting them hard, I was betting them high. My bluff didn't work on a certain guy. He kept on laying the money down. He'd raise me, I'd raise him. You know you gotta sink or swim. He finally stopped and didn't raise the bet. I said, ace is full, pal, how about you? He said, I'll tell you in just a minute or two. Right now, I gotta have me a filter cigarette. Smoke, smoke, smoke! That cigarette. Puff, 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 until you smoke yourself to death. Tell St. Peter at the Golden Gates that you hate to make him wait. You just gotta have another cigarette. Last night I had me a date with the cutest gal in the 48 states, a hybrid, uptown, fancy little dame. She said she loved me, and it seemed to me that everything was the way it ought to be. So hand in hand we strolled down Lover's Lane. She was oh so far from a chunk of ice, and our smooching party was going real nice. So help me, Hannah, I think I'd have been there yet. I gave her a kiss and a little squeeze, and she said, Mark, excuse me, please. Right now I gotta have a filter cigarette. Smoke, smoke, smoke that cigarette. Puff, 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 until you smoke yourself to death. Tell St. Peter at the Golden Gate, you hate to make him wait. You just gotta have another cigarette. And the crowd goes wild. This couple is like 60 years old, right? And they're walking down the street, much like here. And a genie pops out and says, I'm going to give you each one wish. And I'll start with you, ma'am. And she says, oh, I want to travel the world. You know, I'd like to see Norway, Antarctica. I want to see it all, you know. And he said, no problem. He opens up his coat and he takes out tickets and passports. A helicopter comes behind, picks her up, takes her away. The guy is watching his wife being just flown away. And then the genie says to the man, and what would you like? And he says, after seeing his wife leave, he says, I'd like to have a wife 30 years younger than me. And just like that, he turned 90. You know how it is when you're shopping. You know, the guy and the girl, they're shopping and they get separated. And so this couple gets separated, and the girl calls up her husband and says, where are you? And he says, do you remember that jewelry store, you know, when we were younger, and we said, you know, when we get the money, we're going to buy these rings, and we'll just have to wait till we get the money. And do you remember that? She says, she had a little tear coming out of her eye, and she said, yes, I remember that. He says, well, I'm in the golf store next to that building. A mother walks into her son's bedroom and she says, get up, it's time for church. And he says, I don't want to go to church. And she says, you're going to get up and go to church, and I'm going to give you 3 reasons why. Number 1, I'm your mother. Number 2, you're 52 years old, you've lived here your whole life. And number 3, you're the pastor. All right. I was playing Scrabble with my grandkids yesterday, and they were fooling around, so I was just waiting for them to get the words up and stuff, and I accidentally swallowed a few of the pieces, and I had a vowel movement. And I looked in the toilet, and it spelled disaster. I checked with the doctor, no word yet. You have to picture this next scenario. A vulture is going to check in onto a plane, right, Delta, and he's dragging 2 dead raccoons behind him. And he gets up to the plane, you know, right to the access to the plane, and the stewardess goes, hey, wait a minute, only one carry-on. You have to think about that. I told my girlfriend to embrace her mistakes, and she gave me a hug. That Delta. Oh, it was Delta.
That's okay. I don't like them all the time either.
I should have told her too. Next week, by the way, folks, is National Diarrhea Awareness Week. That's not funny. It's National Diarrhea Awareness Week. It runs till Friday. My girlfriend said to me, have you seen the dog bowl? And I said, I didn't know he knew how. When I was younger, my son said to me, Dad, do trees poop? And I said, what? He said, do trees poop? I said, son, where do you think number 2 pencils come from? Oh, those kids left. I have some t-shirts to give away. What do you call a nun that sleepwalks? For a free t-shirt. Anybody have this one? What do you call a nun that sleepwalks? James? A Roman Catholic?
Virgin.
Have you heard the story about a hot rod race? The Fords and the Lincolns were setting the pace. That story is true. I'm here to say that I was driving a Model A. It's got a Lincoln motor. It's really souped up. It's got a Model A body makes it run like a pup. It's got 8 cylinders. Use them all. It's got overdrive and it just won't stall. It's got a 4-barrel dual carbon exhaust with 4 header gears. You could really get lost. Got safety tubes. I ain't scared. The brakes are good. The tires are fair. I was in Spicer late one night and the moons and stars were shining bright. I was cruising down Grapevine Hill passing cars like they were standing still. All of a sudden, in a wink of an eye, a Cadillac sedan passed us by, and I said, boys, that's the mark for me. Then taillights were all you could see. The boys all ribbed me for being behind, so I thought I'd make my Lincoln unwind, took my foot off the gas, and man alive, I shoved it in overdrive. Wound it up to 110. My speedometer said I hit top then. My foot was glued like lead to the floor. That's all there is. There ain't no more. The boys all thought I'd lost my sense. Telephone poles looked like picket fence. They said, slow down. I see spots. Some lines on the road just look like dots. I took a corner, sideswiped the truck, and I crossed my fingers just for luck. My fender was scraping the guardrail post. The girl beside me was as white as a ghost. Smoke was coming from out of the back when I started to gain on that Cadillac. I knew I could catch him. I thought I could pass. Don't you know by then I'd be low on gas. Flames were coming from out of the side. I said, feel the tension, what a ride. Look out, baby, I got a license to fly. That caddy pulled over and he let us by. All of a sudden it started to knock down in the ditch. I started to rock and I looked at my mirror, red lights are blinking. The cops are after my hot rod Lincoln. Well, they arrested me and they threw me in jail. They called my pappy to pay my bail and he said, son, you're going to drive me to drinking if you don't stop driving that hot rod Lincoln. I think I'm running out of stuff. I think that's about it. I don't know. Has that been a half an hour yet? Oh, it isn't. Gosh. Well, my dad, by the way, he said to my sister and I once, he said, you know what? You can dig a hole and you can go straight to China. And we're like, we're kids, you know. I thought, well, that sounds interesting. He said, the shovel is over by the garage. So we started digging, and after a while, you know, got kind of sick of digging. Took a break, and then we found out that our cat Boots died. Okay, how do you make friends with a squirrel? Yeah, you, for a free t-shirt. I have to give some shirts away. How do you make friends with a squirrel? No idea? You act like a nut. That's easy.
Mark, next time you do this, you just get this. I should have had that right there.